Megan Holston-Alexander is well, she's at one of the most successful VC firms of all time, Andreessen Horowitz, and she leads the firm's cultural leadership fund, CLF, which is actually a very big deal. A lot of high profile people are in there. And, you know, she's just, you know, it's very interesting because there's not a lot of Black people in VC, and there's not a lot of women in VC. So she's obviously a Black woman. So it's already, you know, a legendary situation just to even be in her position. But just, you know, somebody that has killed in the game and is a rising star in the world of VC. So I feel like we haven't had a venture capital conversation in a while since John Henry was on. Shout out to John, who always, you know, gives so much great insight. But these conversations are very needed because, you know, it's high level conversation, as my guy 19 Keys would say. And it kind of, you know, gets people information, but also thinking outside the box where we're not just talking about the same thing every single week, where it's like now you can start to think on a much higher level where talking about, you know, billions of dollars and things of that nature. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is a big deal. I got to call my mama and let her know where I am.
That's a fact. 6,500 people on YouTube.
She's watching. Don't worry.
Hit the like button. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. 6,300 people. This is the biggest show ever created when it comes to investing.
Fantastic. Listen. I need you to say that number again so I can try to get on the plane. I need to put in a bid try and get on the plane.
I mean, we would be honored if you could be at InvestFest. So,
oh yeah, you got to be in InvestFest.
I'm gonna try really, really hard to make it. It's a crazy weekend for flying and stuff I got to do, but I'm gonna try to squeeze in one day. I promise. I'm gonna try real hard.
It would be. I
bought a ticket, not even knowing if I could come, but I already have a ticket. And if I can't make it, I'm gonna give it to somebody who can come for sure.
Wow,
appreciate
amazing.
that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, let's get into this conversation.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna jump right into it because I think you had heard we was talking to Don Peebles, and one of the things that he said was, and I don't want to quote the wrong number, but it's something like $60 billion, something like that, venture capital money out there floating, a crazy amount of number.
66 billion.
Less than 7% of 1%, like less than 70 basis points of 1% goes to Black and women, minority and women businesses combined. It's not even, the number's not even big enough to just say Black businesses. So they got to put women in there combined. So
it's a fraction of a percent. You are correct.
A fraction of a percent when, from my understanding also, Black women percentage-wise started the most businesses last year in America. So
because that's what we do. Black women, we just do it all.
Absolutely.
And we do it better than everybody else.
That's a fact. So that's a disturbing number. That's an extremely disturbing number that nobody's talking about. Because like he told us, he was like, imagine if it was even proportional to the population, where it's like, I think we're like 20% of the population. So imagine if 20% of that 66 billion went to Black businesses. Like, imagine how that would change the landscape of things overnight. Like the money's there, it's in circulation, it's just not getting to us. But nobody's talking about that. But everybody's saying like, well, Black businesses fail and different things of that nature. But I mean, there's underlying issues on why this is happening. So, okay, how do we solve this problem with venture capital?
So first, it's way more than 66 billion in venture money out there working. Way much is it? I couldn't even tell you, but you know, Andreessen Horowitz alone, we've got about 30 billion under management. We're just one firm that's only been in operation for the last 10 to 12 years. And so we're just one firm. There's hundreds of firms out there, multiple that are big kind of multi-stage investment firms like ours. So 66, I would say, is a low number. Maybe
I think that was like every year, maybe 66.
Okay, annually. Gotcha.
Annually.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at work, there's a lot of dollars at work over time. But you're asking a big question, and I think is really hard to solve. But one of the things that I've seen over the last few years is people just got to put the money out there because, you know, historically, people have a way that they look at companies. It's like you have to have we want the founders to have a certain degree. We want the founders to have a certain amount of experience, have worked at a certain set of companies, right? If you've worked at, I'm an ex-Twitter, ex-Facebook, Yelp engineer, whatever the case may be. And the fact is that you don't need all those things to be a good founder. And so I think when we can open up the scope to who can be a good founder, we will likely get more dollars in the hands of Black folks and Black women specifically. At the same time, I think the other thing is really important is putting Black investors in place so they can distribute the capital, right? Mm-hmm. Because people, a lot of times, like for kind of the industries that people like, you usually can only like understand problems that or that you've seen. And so when we ask white investors to understand Black companies or Black businesses, if they're in a particular space, they don't get it, right? So then they get into the investment committee meeting and they got to do a vote. And they're like, well, I don't understand. I don't get it. And so if we have Black investors that have dollars that they can put into companies, that also, I think, will increase the amount of dollars that go into Black founders. At the same time, it's not like Black founders only found Black companies. We found, social media companies or consumer, e-commerce companies too. But we do need to have more folks in the room who understand our community to make the decision. So I would say probably those two things.
So VC is something that, is not spoken about in a lot of in our communities. And so I'm interested in what led you to the path of VC.
For sure. So I just learned about VC in 2016. Wow. So I'm about 6 years in. I was on a completely different path in life. I went to Clark Atlanta undergrad. Shout out to CAU.
Shout out to the Panthers. Okay.
Shout out to the Panthers. Yeah. And I was getting a sociology degree. I was like, ooh, I love learning about people and groups. And I had this idea that I wanted to be an academic. I wanted to do research full time and teach full time, be dean of a school and the president of a college. And I went through this path, got my first master's, went to a PhD, hated it, dropped out. I was like, I got to get out of here. This is not for me. Moved to California. And they say to be successful in Silicon Valley, you got to have a good dropout story. So I got my dropout story. Yeah. Moved to Silicon Valley, and it wasn't until I went to business school. So I went to business school at Stanford, and I didn't live on campus because by the time I went to business school, I was much older than most of the people there. And I was like, I'm gonna stay at my house. I'm not gonna move on campus and all that stuff. And so I was trying to beat traffic. Okay, when I was picking my classes, I didn't want to be driving at 9 o'clock in the morning on the 101. It is very hectic. And so there was a venture class that was like early afternoon. I said, perfect, sign me up. And didn't know what it was. And so I get in there, and it's actually with Eric Schmidt. So Eric Schmidt is the former CEO of Google, former CEO, chairman. Everybody calls him, the first adult in the room at Google. And I got completely distracted by finance. That's the bottom line. Went into that class, read everything, just started doing extra stuff, extra reading. And one day we went for a walk with Eric after class, and he may or may not remember this, but we did a little short walk around the GSB. And he's like, Megan, you're one of my best students. I think you should try venture for real. And I said, Black people don't do that. I said, now why would you try to set me up for failure, knowing that there are not people who look like me in this industry? And so I kind of just brushed it off. But after a while, I said, you know what, Megan, if Eric Schmidt says you should try something, maybe you should try it. So then the rest is kind of history. I spent my time running up and down Sand Hill Road. The rest of my time at business school, started doing internships. You're supposed to do like one internship between year 1 and year 2 in business school. And I think I did a total of like 4 all throughout the year. I was working during school, turned into a full-time role, and I've been doing it ever since.
Cool question for you. For those who are interested in getting into the VC space, what are some of the most innovative ways you've seen people that look like us break into the industry?
Yep. So I would say there's 2 ways. And honestly, the most innovative and I think most successful thing I've seen people do is start their own. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen more Black founded venture funds and firms than I've ever seen. It's been an explosion, and I love it. If you're looking for the more traditional path, there's a couple of ways you can do it. So working at a startup, people love seeing that you've spent time on a product team, that you spent time in engineering or spent time in marketing, because you have insight into what to look for in a founder, right? You understand like, oh, they need to set up this, piece of the company or this vertical. You have insight into kind of what the needs are in the space. Also going to business school and kind of just getting an extra business edge and how to think about, technology and to think about business and to think about startups is important. But I say one of the easiest ways is going to a startup and actually spending some time in it, because you get kind of an extra edge. And then actually probably the most important thing is having a perspective about the future. So VC is a long game. It is very different from the public market. It is not like, oh, I'll buy some stocks and next year I'm gonna cash out, or in 2 years I'm gonna cash out, or in 5 years I'm gonna cash. Because I tell my investors in CLF, venture is an 8 to 10 year game. Like, it is a long view game. I say, if you're gonna come to me in 2 years and ask me where your money is, I don't have it.
Yeah,
I don't have it. And so investors who have a perspective on what they think is going to happen in the future, like, oh, I think, people are going to want to start communicating through, I don't know, bird calls by 2030, right? And so you start looking for companies in that space. They just really want people who are kind of thinking beyond the wave. So if you can kind of formulate an idea around that, I think you're likely setting yourself up for success.
Let me ask you this.
Ask me this.
Okay, how do you get the money? So how do companies position themselves to attract venture capital money?
Mm-hmm. So different VCs like different things. All VCs are not the same. And the first thing is that you're going to put yourself in a good position if you find the VCs that are looking for what you have. So if you're building a consumer product, a social app, necessarily going to talk to the enterprise investors or fintech investors or the biotech investors, that's not going to serve you. You're going to waste everybody's time, your time and their time. And neither party is going to like that. So identify who the investors are that are in your space, and not just like your vertical, but your size range, right? So are you raising a pre-seed round, right? Are you raising $500,000? If you're raising $500,000, you don't want to go to a growth fund, right? They're looking for companies that are much later, have a ton of revenue, have a ton of, staff already. So make sure you're not only in the right vertical, but also in the right size range of what you're trying to raise. Early stage VCs tend to be looking for folks with really great ideas. It's usually pre-traction, sometimes pre-product before you have anything. So if you're early stage, it's really about the team that's building it, right? What is your background? Why are you the best person to build this particular company? And then as you grow, it kind of changes, right? How much traction do you have? If you have an app, what's the engagement looking like? How often are people on your app and for how long? So whatever the kind of key performance indicators are for your business, that's really what you should lean into.
I think this conversation is extremely important. We all have children. I have a daughter, and Megan, obviously you are somebody that is extremely inspirational, right? And so I wonder what the experience was like coming into the space, obviously, that we're not familiar with in our community a lot of times. As a Black woman coming into the space, what has that experience been like for you over the past 6 or 7 years?
Totally. So first, I have 2 kids. You're getting mom life right now, because here's a crib. You see the Paw Patrol stickers on the wall.
Shout out to Chase. Been there.
Shout out to Chase is on the case. Okay.
Absolutely.
In the chat, I need you to say something if Paw Patrol has a chokehold on your child, like it does mine.
They did mine for 2 years.
For 2, right? It's a thing. But for me as a mom, I'll say I think venture in general has a long way to go when it comes to women in our role in this industry. And I think there's a lot of learning to do and a lot of growing to do. But what I can say is that, at Andreessen Horowitz, I've had a really fantastic experience as a mom. I'm actually on maternity leave right now. Yeah, I have a 2-month-old. I have a 2-month-old.
Wow.
And I am technically not, technically not working, but I really do love, my role, and I love my firm so much that I'm happy to share about them any chance I get. But I think the key is people making sure that they have really great maternity policies, people making sure that women feel supported in the workplace. And it's not like, oh, if you have kids and you can't work until 2 a.m. and you can't drop everything and get on a flight in 1 hour, that doesn't mean you're any less committed to your role. And I think one of the things, and I hope this is okay for me to share, one of my favorite things about our firm is our leadership has been really phenomenal from a maternity leave perspective and just supporting women at work. And when the pandemic first started, everybody was like, oh, we're going remote, but we think we're going to come back. We might do hybrid. Companies were really trying to figure out what they were going to do. And I'll never forget our founder, Ben Horowitz, got on our all hands and told us, it just happens every Friday. And he says, I was talking to lots of staff about what they want to do and, trying to get opinions on like what should happen first. That's the first sign of a good leader, is like asking people what they actually want to do. And he said, I was speaking to a woman and she said, this pandemic has been the first time that I felt like I can be a good mom and a good employee. And he said, I'm not taking that away from people. I can't take it away. And so he said, we're not going back, no matter what we do, we're not going back to, fully in-office culture, because I can't do that to the moms. And I'm just like, sign me up, So I really, really appreciated that. But I think overall, the industry does have a really, really long way to go because there's not a lot of women.
Yeah. To tie into what you were talking about, like as a parent, I have one 7-year-old, he's in there playing Fortnite now. How do you balance everything? So being a woman, African-American woman, in a super competitive space, how do you manage that family life while trying to be the best at your craft in this VC space?
I don't balance it even. I'm going to agree with you. I don't balance it very well. I do my best, but I try to put like a couple of little rules in place. So for me, when my first son was born, I have a 3-year-old and a 2-month-old. I was like, he's coming everywhere with me. He's coming everywhere with me. I don't care if it's for work. I don't care if it's for play. Up until he's 2, I'm going to take him with me. Because if I'm traveling for work, even if I'm gone for 2 nights, I'm all stressed out. Like, I miss him and I got to FaceTime. But if he's with me, I can stay somewhere for 2 weeks and not be worried about it. Because whenever I get off, I'm going to be back with him. So that's kind of the first thing that I do. And I think that having women kind of who have been my superiors over time, when they have children, they really lean into women who are in the same position. So I try to provide that for the people who are on my team as well, as much as I can. Like, you need flexibility. Your child is sick. You shouldn't feel bad about your child being sick. Why should you be scared to tell your boss, right? And so I try to create that type of environment for everybody around, and I hope that people try to do it for me too. And we just gotta stop explaining ourselves so much. Like, oh, I gotta leave early because I gotta take my kids to the they got a basketball game. And just say, I gotta go. I gotta leave early. We don't have to do all of the explaining and hoping that people will like say, okay, it's all right. Just say what you gotta do.
You think that's an African American thing or a woman thing? Both.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this. How do you pitch yourself to companies for VC? Like, what's the 101 kit that somebody should have if they're interested in getting VC money? And at what point should somebody even entertain trying to get VC money?
Yeah. So reasonable people can disagree, but I think that it really just depends on how ready you want to be. But venture tech startups is very much a fail fast type of mentality. You rather try early, figure out what you're doing wrong, and then come back again after you've fixed all your mistakes. If you're trying to get everything perfect, like, oh, my company has to be perfect and we have to have all these details right, et cetera, you're probably going to spend too much time trying to get that right and actually not know what you need to fix because you haven't shown anybody, right? You're building in secret and you're like, oh, this has to be perfect. And then at the end of the day, you go do your pitch and they're like, oh, well, all these things are wrong and you could have fixed them far earlier. So again, if you want to raise at the pre-seed level, a lot of people don't have a product. It's just an idea and a pitch deck. And you're walking somebody through what you think it can be. A lot of investors on the VC side are just, we care about magnitude, right? It's like, how big can this idea get? Have you identified a really, really big market? Is it a really, really great team? And do I think that they can execute? And you can get money with nothing.
Well, let's break this down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, because I want to talk to people that's not really familiar with the space. So the team is very important, right? Mm-hmm. So putting together a team, like senior leadership, other people that have already had success in the space, that's going to be helpful, right?
Yeah.
And then like putting together like the pitch deck of the idea of kind of like you said, just even if it's not fully there yet, like what it can potentially do and convincing somebody that you have the capability of actually making this happen, right?
Yeah. For sure. And I would say even beyond getting to senior leadership, when you're at the really, really early stage, it's about the founding team, right? Mm-hmm. Who are the people who are founding this company? If it's like, say it's an education tech company and it's about teaching kids how to X, Y, Z, whatever. And you're a former teacher, right? That's really interesting to investors because you know the space, you understand what the need is, or you're a former principal or a school board member. And then you partner up with, say, an engineer who was at whatever other ed tech company, right? We're looking at, are these puzzle pieces in place for this idea and this team to actually work?
So you're leading.
No, Troy, go ahead.
So you're leading the Cultural Leadership Fund. Can you talk about what it is, its importance, and how unique it is to the tech space?
I can. So Cultural Leadership Fund. So it probably starts. Let me start at what Andreessen Horowitz is, because that will make Cultural Leadership Fund make even more sense. So
let's do it.
Andreessen Horowitz, we are a venture capital firm. We've got, again, about $30 billion under management, and we do early stage and growth stage investing. So the full kind of scale of venture capital. And we do so through a number of funds. So we've got a venture fund, we've got crypto fund, we've got growth, we have a biotech fund. So all of those funds exist at our firm. And then Cultural Leadership Fund is this other fund that is a strategic co-investment vehicle inside of Andreessen Horowitz. So we invest alongside those other ones that I just mentioned. But the thing that is really interesting and really cool about what we do at CLF is that we do those co-investments with two main missions in mind. So the first is connecting the world's greatest cultural leaders to the best new technology companies. And the second is getting more young African Americans into technology. So that first mission, you guys actually kind of talked about it earlier. When we say getting cultural leaders into technology companies, we mean the world's greatest athletes, entertainers, musicians, C-level executives, all of whom are excited about technology. They're interested in innovation. They want to play a role in the things that are being built across this industry. And CLF gets to be an on-ramp for that. And I think for so many, we call them cultural leaders, in the past, it's been about like getting a sponsorship deal with a company after they've gotten big, or figuring out how to monetize on, X platform. But for us, it's about getting ownership on the cap table of these companies. And again, these are companies kind of pre-public. So before the average retail investor can get into a company, we're taking it back to the private space and making sure that we get Black dollars onto the cap tables of these companies.
Quick question for you. So what are like 3 or 4 key traits that an entrepreneur can have that will make your fund or one similar to it go crazy, like once you see their pitch deck or presentation?
Yeah, so the important thing to note there is CLF is a co-investment vehicle. So we don't do direct investments. We invest alongside the other funds. Okay. But I think that's an important piece to bring up, though, because in this concept, I think about Black generational wealth. And I think there's a few really key ways to do it when we think about technology and technology companies. The first is obviously investing in Black founders, right? It's making sure you put dollars in their hands so they can put it into their companies and grow. The second is getting Black dollars on cap tables So getting Black investors into whatever tech companies that are out there. And then the third is getting Black talent into tech companies. So being an employee at the seed or the Series A or the Series B stage, because that early employee equity can potentially be very, very valuable down the road, right? We've all heard the stories of Facebook or Twitter making people millionaires overnight. And so I think those are the three ways to really build generational wealth for the Black community. I think technology has proven that time and time again. And CLF focuses on those last two. We focus on Black investor dollars on the cap table, and we focus on Black talent into technology companies.
Dame Dash on the FaceTime call during Market Monday.
Buzz them in.
What's up, bro? Look,
I was joking.
Say what's up. It's
everybody.
She's one of the most powerful people in venture capital. This is Dame Dash. Say what's.
Hi, Dame Dash.
Yo, Dave, we only doing a live show right now, bro.
You're on the live show.
What'd you say? You said the camera skills tough?
No, all you showing me is a curtain.
Yo, we on a live show. I'm gonna call you right back.
Yeah, man.
Can we actually make an announcement, actually?
What do you think about venture, Dame Dash? Bring him into the convo.
Let's Dame. I wasn't.
You gotta bring the phone to
She's good.
I wasn't planning on this, but everything happens for a reason. So Dame Dash is one of our favorite people on earth.
Yes.
A cultural icon.
Absolutely.
He reminds us every single time he speaks to us how much he's helped our program.
How important he is to us.
Yes.
You have to know your value.
I'll remind y'all how much I haven't helped my program. That's what I was doing.
That too.
So Dame, I called you the other day. I said, look, we got this big thing, InvestFest, we need you there. And after about 5 minutes, Dame Dash will be at InvestFest. Confirmed.
You better not let me get around Dame. You think I act crazy now, boy.
Dame Dash, ladies and gentlemen, will be in Atlanta.
A Market Mondays exclusive.
What's the date again?
August 7th. I'm gonna make sure you're there.
August 7th.
I'm gonna call you every single day to make sure you're there.
That's a fact.
All right, bet. That means we're breaking bread.
That's a fact.
Yes, breaking bread. Dame, I'm gonna call you after this is over, brother.
I see you got your beard lined up.
Dame is different, yo. Dame is different. Oh.
It's not
Tell Dame we love
call
her.
out.
Dame, always got jokes. Always got jokes.
True and true character.
You're killing it. All right, my nigga.
Dame Dash will be at InvestFest, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Market Mondays exclusive. I was gonna wait till next week to drop that, but
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm on this episode because all the big announcements are coming in this episode. So
that is a fact.
I picked the right time. At first, it's funny. I think we were supposed to do a different day, but I ended up on the biggest announcement.
That is true. That is true.
There you have it. Tyler Perry, Dame Dash. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
And we're not done.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't resist myself. Dame, anytime Dame calls, that's a legendary moment. We grew up on like music, like Rockefeller, so it's still kind of weird to me that Dame Dash calls me FaceTime. Like it's kind of surreal.
It's bizarre.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like the numbers that come through, I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is our life now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask the Queen a question real quick?
Yes, please.
So Ben is one of my favorite entrepreneurs of all time. Can you share maybe like 3 or 4 big lessons you've learned from him since being there?
Ooh.
Take your time.
Yes. Ooh, that's a good question. You put me on the spot. I have learned actually a lot of lessons from Ben. My favorite, I'll give you my favorite. So our firm is a really active venture firm, doing a lot of stuff all the time. And I think there are a lot of opportunities that come our way that could be quick and easy. But Ben has this phrase, and we have this value at the firm that says we take the long view on relationships. And what that means is we're in a relationship business. But what that means is that we don't sacrifice relationships for a quick buck. You don't have to, when people come into our firm, you don't have to worry about us going and running and tell somebody else about your business or all your secrets or, that we'll steal something or switch up something up. Like we are very loyal to the relationships that we build. And that is just dangerously critical to me, because I think that loyalty is really important. And I think trust is really important.
Everything.
But we take the long view on relationships. Nobody forever has to worry about us, flipping and dipping for $1 million here, or 5 million there, or 10 million here. We really try to be about it.
Let me ask you this. You spoke about the Series A, Series B. We have like seed round. We just spoke to Pinky from Slutty Vegan. She just got $25 million in her seed.
Pinky, my heart. That is my bae.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Shout out to Pinky.
That's my bae.
She's
we went to college together. She is my soror. She brought me into Delta. Wow. She was Miss CAU the year before me. And then I was Miss CAU, but she was Miss Junior and I was Miss Sub. We've been leveling up on each other for a long time. She's everything. And I'm always following in her footsteps. So this is
you have a 2-month-old. She has a 1-week-old. Y'all,
y'all sisters for real.
That is my sister for sure.
Shout out to Pinky. But yeah, can you kind of talk about that? Like seed rounds, round A, like what does that mean?
Yep. So that's just about the stage that you are in the company. And I tell people to think about fundraising rounds as like a step function. It's not like a linear, relationship like this. It just goes up. It's not like that where it's like your valuation grows and it doesn't work like that. It's like this, right? And what that means is like if you're at a seed round, there's all the stuff that you need to do before you can raise a Series A. And then when you raise a Series A, you just stay flat. There's all the stuff you need to do and accomplish and achieve from a traction and a profit and a revenue perspective before you can raise a Series B. And then you jump up to the next round. It's not kind of this like constant ticking. But essentially, usually like a seed round is maybe you've got a rough version of your product. You are, working on a beta. Maybe you've got a couple of people testing it out. By Series A, you found a little bit of product market fit. You're starting to think about, you've got a repeatable process for acquiring customers or users, right? There's all these kind of tidbits of traction and benchmarks that firms are looking for. And every firm is different, right? Some firms might say, well, no, that seed that you said is more of a Series A to me. And for other people, like, oh, that's totally a Series B. So every firm is different, but the idea is that there's kind of these benchmarks that you have to meet to get to each round.
So obviously the fund, you've had a lot of people invest. You've had obviously celebrities, you've had cultural leaders, you've had athletes. I'm wondering from your side, how encouraging it is to see this type of diversity coming into the space, or if it's not at a pace that you that is fulfilling to you, what can we do to encourage people to look at this as a way to actually put into your portfolio as a way to generate generational wealth? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yep, for sure. So the insight that kind of started Cultural Leadership Fund was this idea that when it came to the things that were cool, what people wore, what people liked to do, what they talked about, it was Black Twitter and Instagram and Black TikTok. It was Black people and what we were doing that everybody wanted to do.
Say it again.
But again, so often we weren't capturing any of the value of these companies, right? Again, we be real popping on there and then maybe get a sponsorship later or whatever the case is. But when it came to owning the company as they grew and your kind of relationship growing proportionately, and your wealth growing proportionately to the company, it just didn't exist. So CLF was created in order to kind of alleviate that, where it's like, okay, these Black culture creators, people shaping, shifting, creating culture, if we can get them on the cap tables early, then they can really truly capture the value of what it is that they're bringing to the platform. And so I love it because our investors have become some of the most savvy, thoughtful, investment partners in these companies that I've ever seen. So this whole concept of like a dumb athlete, this whole concept of like a spacey, actress or whoever, business leader, those days are over. These are some of the most thoughtful and kind of intricate people that I've ever met, and portfolio companies like working with them. They don't want to work with people who are just going to drop a couple of dollars and disappear. That's completely useless because money is abundant when it comes to the venture capital space. It's like, they don't have to take your money.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to take your money. They're getting money from, Andreessen Horowitz or Sequoia or whoever else. If you're, when you're a cultural leader, it's not about your money. It's about the value that you can help bring to help the company succeed. And so I've seen people really come into that, into their own as investors through the CLF. And I think that's only going to grow. I think it's an insight that other people are starting to catch on to and try to create kind of similar vehicles. But we're really proud that we get to be the first.
Can you talk about the impact this? My apologies. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go for it.
Can you talk to us about the impact that attending CAU had on your life? Because sometimes I think as African Americans, we think HBCU isn't as good. But the guy who actually introduced me to investing went to Clark. You mentioned Pinky.
Of course he did. Why would he not? Why would he go anywhere else?
Shout out him, Dr. Pleasant, right? Can you talk about how important and what an impact attending Clark had on you in your career?
Clark was everything. I'm from Alabama.
What part?
Montgomery.
Wow, I got family in Midway.
You been over there?
Come on, man.
You said you got family in Midway?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the country.
Country. Solo. Yeah.
But it's okay. My people are from Pigeon Creek and Greenville and Butler.
You follow?
Like,
yeah.
And people try to play. I'm gonna come back to your question, but people try to play me because all the people from California and New York be like, oh, I'm from New York. I'm from California. I'm like, where's your grandma from? Where's your grandmother from? And they be like, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, right? All these southern states.
Mississippi, yeah.
We're like, you're welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Drinking out of a mason jar. Like, it's my life. It's my life. But remind me really quickly, what was the question? Clark Atlanta, yes.
Yes.
But I think when it came to experiencing people from lots of different places, I think places like Clark Atlanta that bring together students, particularly because it's a private HBCU. It's really small, and so people come from different states, which I really enjoyed. Our whole motto: find a way or make one. It is on my whiteboard. I live by it every day. I learned that I have a choice in the way that I respond to things and when I want to give up and when I want to keep going. Really, really good at just figuring it out. And I think this concept that people say it all the time, so I don't mean to sound cliche, but it's a lot of types of Black people out here. We are not all the same. We don't talk the same. We don't dress the same. We don't think the same. And I think I learned to appreciate the full diaspora of Black folks and who we are, regardless of where we're from. But Clark Atlanta is not, we are hustlers.
Absolutely.
Music, everybody's working on something. Listen, you can't go to Clark Atlanta if there's musicians, somebody's producing, doing hair, rapping.
ABC was popping.
It's popping, and everybody wants to come hang out on Clark Atlanta's promenade, and we
Baby,
it just really is a beautiful space of community, and I'm so blessed, and I'm lucky because I come from a family of just HBCU people, and I'm praying and I'm hopeful that my kids will go to an HBCU. They go wherever they want, but it is a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Shout out to all the HBCUs. We might have something special planned for HBCUs.
Shout out to the city of Atlanta.
Let me ask you this: as far as the VC world is concerned,
yes.
What is the rate of return that you guys look for, like when you're investing, like in your portfolio? Like, what's the 10 years like down the line? You say, okay, this was good. It's a two-part question, but that's the first part. So
first, you trying to get me to go to jail, the SEC is gonna be after me. I gotta be real careful about what I say.
Yes.
I don't want them knocking on my door, but I'll actually point to something that Steve Harvey said when he was on with you guys. He talked to you guys about batting averages. And I remember y'all being like, oh, that's the first time we heard that. This girl was like, dang it. So I can't bring it. That is like the VC metric that we love talking about. Is VC is about batting averages. But the piece that I would add to what Steve said was batting average is important, but also even more important is your slugging percentage, right? So what is the magnitude of the hits that you're making? Because your batting average could be X, right? You hit 3 out of 10. But I think everybody would rather, hit a home run with bases loaded and knock it out of the park. And so we think a lot about what is the magnitude of the investments that we're making. We love, we can hit a single or a double, but we really, really, really love home runs, whether we get a 10X or 50X or 100X or 1000X. We really do try to make investments into companies that we think are going to return the fund.
So let me ask you this, if I can. The second part of that question,
yes,
is the harsh reality. Chris Lyons, somebody who you're familiar with.
Yes, I know that guy.
Shout out to our guy.
Chris, so I was talking to him in LA.
Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
Sound went out. Mic went low.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There you are.
You plugged your mic up.
Back in business. All right. So I was talking to him in LA a while ago, and he was saying that the greatest wealth opportunity in history is happening right now and will be happening for like the next decade in tech startups.
Yep.
And he was like, the vast majority of Black people is not going to be able to benefit from it, and they're not going to be able to make any money from it. And we talk about, this show is about stock market investing, right? Yep. Public companies. But we understand that massive amounts of wealth is made on the private side. Yes. VC, before companies go public.
Yep.
So like, that's where you get a 10,000x return. And that's when you can turn 50,000 to 5 million. Of course,
yeah,
that doesn't happen every day, but it's possible.
Yeah.
But you need access, you need relationships, you need money. So that's something that nobody's talking about, because billions of dollars are being generated with these tech startup companies, and it's going to continue to be generated. But not only do Black people hardly get any money from venture capital, they don't have the opportunity or the resources to actually invest in venture capital. So that's a whole nother set of problems. Mm-hmm. So how do we get more people into actually the opportunity to invest in the private market as opposed to only investing in public markets?
Yep. So there's a lot there. So first, private market investing, and specifically venture capital, is dangerously risky. Mm-hmm. It is the riskiest asset class that you can get involved in. And I say that knowing that in the public market, by the time a company goes public, let me just tell you what going public means. Going public means that you've already got a board in place. It means you've got a certain amount of revenue. You've got compliance things in place. You got all these systems in place in order to go public and sell your stock to a retail investor, that it's already been adjusted for risk. It's already been checked for risk. When you are betting on two guys in a garage in, I'm going to say Montgomery, Alabama, just because that's where I'm from, two guys in a garage in Montgomery, they could be complete total clowns, right? There's a huge amount of risk that you're taking that is just simply not there in the public market. And the reason why it's so risky, again, is because venture's a long game, and it's 8 to 10 years before a company will go public or be bought. So that's 10 years of risk you're taking up front. And we all know in investing, the people who take the biggest risks are the ones that are going to get the biggest reward. And so that's why venture returns are so huge, or can be really huge, because we're paying pennies on the dollar for a stock that's $30 when it goes public. Most VC firms, 6 years later, 7 years later, 6 or 7 years before, paid $1.50 per share. Right. So, but we had to wait, 10 years for it to go public and to actually get liquidity. So your money is locked up for a really, really long time. So with that being said, it's very, very risky. And the government doesn't want people taking that kind of risk as individuals, right? Because, that's why we got those classifications of accredited investor and unaccredited investor. And that's because they don't want people spending their, retirement on some random idea that they heard from a person to be an investor. So it started as a means of protection, but I do think it needs to be loosened, because I think there's a lot of, well qualified, very able people who can make investment decisions, but it's really tough, and people need to be protected from that. So there has to be some balance around private and public investing. And then the last thing I'll say is, yes, Black people haven't historically been involved, but like the firms that are coming up the last couple of years with these Black general partners, I know you mentioned John Henry earlier, and the guys that he works with, I've known of at least 20 to 30, Black led or Black GP funds in the last 2 years. So I'm really, really optimistic about it. And like I said, the other way that I think people are going, so Black people investing is one way to get money. And I'll actually talk about like how we make money, because I think that's probably important to describe to people. Black people investing the dollars, because when you invest the dollars, you get the money back. Black people on the cap tables either as the GP or as an investor in a GP, and then Black people working at the tech companies, right? Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. I say that all the time. And one thing that I'm trying to get people to stop saying is that like people who work at companies aren't betting on themselves. What? That's crazy. That's not true. That's ridiculous. Like just leave the company and bet on yourself. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Like I have no desire to build a company, right? So for the people who are interested in a particular, problem that they want to work on or company they want to be a part of, getting in at the early stage is really important. How you can cash in on that wealth.
Yeah. So I'll just add to what Rashad said from an investment standpoint. But sometimes, having the educational process is even more beneficial when you're hands-on, you're actually in the space. And so what are some of the opportunities and roles that come within being in a VC firm? Like how do people even apply, or what are the qualifications that they need to even be in a firm? Right. And what are the roles? Because like obviously you're leading a role, but there's other opportunities for people to be employed inside of it, right? Where they can get hands-on knowledge. So
there's space for employing in venture and employing in tech. So in venture, if you're, firms like Andreessen Horowitz, we need all kinds of people, right? We need investors. We need marketing people. Andreessen Horowitz has been a huge kind of marketing and content, machine for the last several years. One of the things we're most known for is our content, right? So editors, podcast people, we have go-to-market folks. So if you've done sales and customer success, we support our portfolio companies with those things. So we need folks who have those skill sets. And so I think at the larger stage firms or the larger, size firms, there's like a range of jobs that you could do. Similar to tech. To be in tech, you don't need to be technical. You don't need to know how to code. Mm-hmm. You could be in HR, you can be in marketing, you could be in sales. So it really is just about making that transition into the technology space. Because like you said, I agree with Chris 1000%. Technology is the biggest wealth driver that we have today. And so we're very, very like hardcore about it. And I'll say it over and over again, that it is one of the clearest, largest ways to build wealth over a period of time.
What are the 3 books and 3 conferences you think people should attend or read to learn more about angel or venture capital?
Mm-hmm. So our founder, Ben Horowitz, has a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Great book.
I think it was a great book about company building and the whole space. And actually Scott Cooper does not get the shine, he deserves. Scott Cooper is one of the 4 managing directors at Andreessen Horowitz. And he has a book called The Secrets of Sand Hill Road. And for the folks who don't know, Sand Hill Road is considered kind of VC land, right? All of the largest kind of most active VC firms, at least from years past, are on Sand Hill Road. It's in Menlo Park. All of them are, kind of side by side, all down this road. And it's called Secrets of Sand Hill Road. And you can get the insight into what it's like, how people think about investing in companies, how the firm thinks about it. It's one of my favorite books. That's a solid one. And then one of the first ones that I read, it's like a little thin book. It's called Breaking the VC. And I'm sure y'all can agree, when it comes to things you don't know about, if you get the vocabulary down pat, you're probably 70 to 80% there. If you just learn the language that people are speaking, and it breaks down the words like investment and like carried interest and, ARR or whatever the case may be, just so you can get knowledgeable about the space and how it works. And actually, can I go back? I mean, Sorry, go ahead, Rashad.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I brought up carried interest again, and I feel like I should probably tell people about what that is and how VCs make money. Because I think this show is about how it all works and how to get people to make more money. So the way that venture firms make money is we take money from outside investors. They're called limited partners. And their hope essentially is that we'll flip it. They hope to give us money and that we'll flip it. And, we have carried interest. And I think it actually comes from like old school, like shipping, like actual ships, where it's like, we'll carry your load from one place to the next, but we're going to keep 20% of either whatever it is you're shipping or the money that you make off of shipping. Oh. So it carried over to venture capital and investing. And essentially, so say we raise, get $100 million from outside investors and we 3x it. So $300 million we have made from the investments that we made with that original $100 million. The $100 million is going to go back to the investors, right? You get your money back first. And then of the $200 million that's left, we're going to divide that out. Some firms take as little as 20%. Some firms take 30% if they, at least 3x it, like there's a range, but let's just say 30%. So 100 goes back to you. And then the 200 million, you get to keep 70%. And then the venture capitalists keep 30%. So if there's $200 million of profit, we'll keep 60 million. And that's how we make money.
Yes, very important.
So when we get our Black investors on the cap table, that 140 additional goes to them.
And I think I had asked you this before, but the ultimate goal for you guys is investing in a company, and the company either has to go public on a stock market like Uber or one of these tech startup, or it has to be acquired like Ring, which got acquired by Amazon.
Yep.
Those are like the two main ways that you guys would make money, right?
Yeah, those are called liquidity events. So our money is locked up until the company goes through a liquidity event of going public or being purchased. And like when you think about like the batting average, slugging percentage, et cetera, when it comes to like how many companies really do fail, right? You said earlier, like, oh, I've heard, or a lot of the other people were saying that Black women companies fail or Black companies fail. Most companies fail. You don't gotta be Black. I want to say like 80 to 90% of startups fail. Because it's a tough industry. It's a really tough thing to do. And founders have to be really resilient and have a great idea and build the right team and get the right cut. Like there's all these pieces that need to work. And so in venture, a lot of times, if you invest in 10 companies, maybe, probably 7 of them are going to go to 0. And then 2 might be singles or doubles, but you're praying that one of them, right, is that 100x that you talked about, Rashad.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah.
I like that slugging percentage.
Yeah. Let's go to the question before we go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, my final question. What's the one piece of advice that you wish you would have known 6 years prior when you entered into the venture space?
Mm-hmm. The power of relationships. I didn't know that was as important as it is. And it probably more important than it should be. So even from applying to jobs to, building your house to sending your kids to school, like who you know and the relationship that you can build is just really important. And when it comes to like finding new companies and sharing deals and spending time with each other, like networks are just really, really important. And I learned that the hard way because I used to, really think that like I used to think I could do everything on my own, and you just can't. Yeah, you cannot. And that fits into so many different ways in different parts of life that you just can't do it all on your own. So building networks is really, really important.
It's actually the most important thing in the world. Relationships is like
I agree.
Everything.